Why do we need to contemplate our own malevolence? What if you get stuck in it? How do you move forward after becoming aware of it, especially if you've actually done something bad? I'm not speaking of criminal. I think it's a human propensity, a profoundly deep human propensity to see the world in terms of good and evil. Shades of good and evil, but even absolutes of good and evil. And we understand that malevolence exists, that now and then people act to hurt others. And although apologists exclaim that that's generally motivated by the desire for some good, I'm not convinced. There's a certain pleasure in vengeful harm, and we all feel the desire to be vengeful merely as a consequence of in some sense, the perceived central unfairness of existence itself, and the undeserved suffering that seems to accompany it. It's easy to become frustrated by that and embittered by that and to lash out and to hurt. And so that's malevolence. Well, and it's a very destructive force. And so if you identify malevolence somewhere else than within, you can become powerfully motivated to take corrective action against the perceived source of malevolence. So I see that, for example, when critics of our social structures insist that the fundamental motivating factor that organizes those structures is the arbitrary expression of undeserved power or invalid power, privileged power, let's say. Well, yes, to some degree, because every structure has its element of corruption. None of us are perfect, and neither are institutions. But the danger of that view is that once you've identified the locale of malevolence and it's not you, well, then you're a moral actor and can do no wrong in your pursuit of the wrongdoer. And that's very, very dangerous. It's not that easy to identify the wrongdoer, especially when you're talking about social institutions. And some appreciation of your own malevolence might stop you from being so vicious in your pursuit of the perceived wrongdoers who aren't you. And you know that one of the terrible attributes of utopian totalitarian societies is their proclivity to localize malevolence in some group, and then their unbridled pursuit of destruction in relationship to that group and all the atrocities that go along with that as a consequence of that attribution of malevolence. And so it's a tenet of the Judeo-Christian ethic that the adversary is best confronted within. And now, you object to that for good reasons. Like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to see yourself as a perpetrator rather than a victim or a hero? And the answer to that is, well, no, it's devastating. It can be devastating. I don't think that you can be motivated to be good. I don't think you can be serious about your attempts to be good unless you have some real sense of just how far off track you can get or have got, and how malevolent you have been or could be in your actions. You just don't take yourself seriously enough until you see the devil within. And when you see that, well, it can be traumatizing, and you're objecting to that. What if you get stuck in that? And it's no wonder people don't want to contemplate it. But it's not easy for me to see how you can go through all the difficult gyrations necessary to put your moral house in order if you don't view yourselves as akin to the perpetrator in very many important senses. So, and you take that on to yourself and try to rectify that within yourself. And so I guess you contemplate your own malevolence so that you don't unconsciously project malevolence onto others and assume your own, assume your own moral rectitude. You have to localize malevolence somewhere because you tend to see it as an existential constant, right? It's something that exists in the world that needs a locale. And the safest locale and the most salutary locale, I believe, is the identification of malevolence within. It isn't obvious to me that that's more traumatizing than localizing it in the social structures, for example, but it might be.